Okay, that's great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. This session is pretty special because we're gonna talk about the latest update about study in the US, the current updates, and today I'm not alone to talk about it. Right now, we have Mr. Andrew Young here. He's a senior recruitment director, product sales and marketing of Shorelight. So. Actually, I'm inviting the expert to talk about this. Yeah. And everyone, please welcome Mr. Andrew. And I believe he's currently in South Korea, but we're gonna talk about all about US education system today. And feel free to listen the presentation. And at the end of the presentation, we're gonna have like a mini Q&A session. If you have any questions during the presentation, just type it out in the chat, and we'll talk about it later after the presentation. Okay. Now, Mr. Andrew, feel free to start the presentation whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Susan. And hello to everyone here on the virtual hemisphere. Absolute pleasure to be here. As Susan mentioned, I am currently the Senior Recruitment Director for Product Sales and Marketing. What does that entail, you may ask? It really involves numerous training cycles as well as collaborations and working with our key stakeholders, not just individuals such as yourself, but also within the university end. I've been at Shorelight for, I would say, a little over 10 years, for quite some time. Previously, I've also worked at numerous universities, of course, here in the US, Louisiana State University, as well as Adelphi University in New York, which are also two of our Shorelight partners within our Shorelight portfolio. So I've been in higher education totaling for about a little bit shy of 20 years. Of course, primarily here in the US. I'm originally from New York City, so any of you who may have visited New York, hopefully then we're able to kind of show you around as well. I generally oversee the different countries and supporting different regions in the APEC area. So currently I am in South Korea. Next week I'll be in Japan. I've also been to Indonesia, Thailand, as well as, of course, many, many others. One of the things that really is consistent throughout my travels is really just getting more information, not just from students and parents, but also from you on really what the audience is looking for. What are students and parents really looking more to understand about the current political climate, as well as what is the best fit for their child. And I really think the first main component starts from really understanding the US education system, as well as then understanding what are the opportunities, all the benefits, and also then how that leads on into future student success. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of go into the next slide here. The first main component that I always get asked a lot is, why the US, right? There are many other countries where English, of course, is highly spoken, great education systems. Some of the ones you may, of course, know from Australia, from Canada, UK, other Asian countries, etc., etc. But I would say one of the most focal point that really helps the US, especially whether it's liberal arts or research universities, private, public, etc., really goes towards making sure a curriculum fits the student. Academic flexibility, when students are able to, once, I would say, let's backtrack. When a student first applies to a university, of course, we all know they generally select a major. But the number one most common major is actually undecided. We all know that sometimes students change their mind, uh, same as others, as well as some students may do an internship and then feel that it does not align to what they would like to do in the future, as well as different advancements in technology may then shift a student to go from point A to another major. In other countries, you have to then return back home before you're able to then reapply and then commit to another major. But in the US, you're able to then shift your field without particular delays, without paying more. That is really stands within academic flexibility. And that really is the core of one of the main benefits of studying in the United States. Opportunities for internships as well as work placements. Really just taking students outside the classroom, or what we refer to as experiential learning. Engagement beyond the classroom is something that is really crucial, not just for students to really get to know more about what are the industries that they will be looking to enter, but also developing those network opportunities for them to engage and then have job placements post graduations. And many universities in the US, of course, have a career services center, but there are also many others that have it per department. Some even have it between undergrad and graduate programs. So there really is different nuances across different universities. So if you're ever curious within our Shorelight portfolio, always feel free to reach out and we can kind of share those differences as well. The US has always been a very welcoming place. One of the things that I always share, a story of my own parents as well as grandparents. I'm a proud son of immigrants. My parents made the journey over from South Korea to the US. They pursued their bachelor's, etc., for higher education. And of course, then I was born and raised. The US really embraces having different cultures because it really enhances the classroom experience. Universities want domestic students to also get to know more about different horizontal experiences as well as exposures and vice versa. I always tell students and to our international students, please share your stories. Know about what you're able to then market as well as pitch to when you're applying for companies in the future. Being able to bring a different international perspective or experience really just fosters that additional growth within yourself as well as securing additional opportunities for placement. Within, I would say critical thinking, this main key part here, problem solving, being active, really thinking outside the box, is a phrase we generally use in the US, really cadences towards what makes the academic structure very rigorous in the United States, but also makes it where you're able to then have really embracing creative thinkers, as well as having those different opportunities. So then I kind of then want to segue into the overview, and then I'll talk a little bit more about what that actually means when we're talking about core classes as well as major classes. So and this is really interchangeable, whether it's going to be a undergraduate degree or a master's degree program. But there really are two main types of, I would say, universities that students are generally looking for. Of course, the first one being a public university, and the second one being private universities. Uh, the question that I always get asked a lot is that, what is better? Is it public or is it private? And I always tell parents and students, it really depends on the atmosphere you're looking for. Private universities don't generally mean that the student population is that much smaller. At times it is, but the campus could actually be bigger, more sprawled, spread across than public universities. So the size of a university really doesn't, in terms of infrastructure, a cadence towards that, but it generally is aligned more towards the student population in terms of classroom sizes as well. But main, I would say, differentiating factor would be that public institutions, have a huge influx of state funding or state grants, federal funding, etc., and are generally typical, not always, but are typical larger in student population. For example, one university within Shorelight's portfolio, Florida International University, down in Miami, Florida, very popular university, top 100 ranked university. They are the fourth largest university in the US. I would say about 55,000 students total. That is a large, large university. And then if you go across the spectrum, private universities, for example, University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio, the birthplace of aviation, you're looking at a general population of about 10 to 11,000 students, so significantly smaller. At times, private universities can have a higher cost, but one of the things that, on the flip side, is that they're able to then issue more substantial scholarships. So I'll put a great perspective into those two examples. Florida International University, generally from a cost perspective, let's say after scholarship, you may be looking at about 19 to 21,000 USD per year based on the student's merits. And then if you look at comparison to University of Dayton, before scholarship, you're looking at about 48, 49,000 USD if a student qualifies for direct entry. So you might say, wow, 20, 19 to 21,000, 50,000 USD. That's a huge difference. Yes, but University of Dayton, as a private university, they're able to control their scholarships and have more hands-on as well as more specific requirements. So if a student has a certain GPA, they're able to then issue 30,000 USD, which then brings their tuition down to about 20,000 USD per year. So you can see that there are still great scholarships available within private universities. From a semester structure, US universities generally are operating on a semester system, but of course, there are some universities that might do a quarter system. For example, Seattle University, which we also work with, operate on a quarter system, which means that their classes are generally around 11 weeks, so 4 quarters or 4 semesters, quote unquote. So they would have a fall intake, a winter intake, a spring intake, and a summer intake, for example. But generally, most universities operating on the 2 semesters. So you have fall, you have spring, and those semesters are generally about 16 weeks. Most universities, but not all, are generally running from August to December that operate on the two main semester structure for fall, and then generally from January to May. There are, of course, some universities that do have a later start, which means that they will generally be starting in September and then ending in December. In terms of summer semesters, across universities, then you have limited classes. Of course, at times most students either return home or find internships. Some faculty also take sabbaticals or they take time off. So there generally isn't a huge collection of majors or courses that students can take. Those I would say are generally more for general core courses, not really advanced major specific classes. Of course, it really just depends on the university. So within a particular major, you will always see different, I would say, terminology. Some universities may say, in order to graduate, you have to have X number of credits. Some universities may say you need to have X number of hours or units. Essentially, those mean the same thing, credits, hours, units. So I want to highlight that there because at times, sometimes students do ask those questions. Why is this university saying hours or units? What does that mean? Same thing. So it generally means that the courses are measured in that particular credit or hour or unit. So some classes may be 4 credits, or it may be 3 credits. It may be 5 credits. Generally, laboratory work, it's about 1 credit. And 1 credit hour generally equals 1 hour of class per week. So, for example, if you have or a student is registering for a 4 credit intro to biological sciences class the first semester, that person will be meeting 4 hours per week in that particular class. It may be 2 hours per class per week, which means 2 classes, 2 hours each, 4 hours, or it might be 1 hour per day for 4 days. But generally, I would say you're looking at about two. Some classes, of course, might just meet all those hours in one day, just really depends on the course structure. Most degrees across the US generally do require about 120 hours that I would say would be the most normal or the most average across most majors. But there are some engineering majors across universities that might require about 128 hours of credits. So once again, really just depends on the major. The general grading system should look familiar to you, but just to reiterate, generally you're looking at a letter grade, which then equals a particular numerical value. So A being excellent, you're looking at times, once again, depending on universities, but it might be 90 to 100 equals an A, for example. And of course, then you have the F, the fails, and generally, of course, grade points assigned to the GPA. Across all universities in the US, starting from high school as well, we follow a 4.0 scale. So we have, a grading scale, which really depends per university, but you will always see the range of numbers, which equals the letter grade. There's always a question that I receive. Why is there a difference between the admission GPA requirement and then standing in academic standings? For example, some universities may tell students you need to have a 3.0 in order to be admissible, so at the time of admission, but then you need at maybe a 2.0 or 2.5 GPA to maintain your academic standing. That's a big difference. It's because universities know that at times students may have a large number of coursework. Some students may also be doing research projects, internships, so they may have to kind of balance their studies with, of course, experiential learning. Hence, universities then make the academic standing a little bit lower than the admission criteria for their particular universities. So at times you do see that kind of difference. The class types, the structures are going to, of course, be a little bit different depending on what subject or course a student is registered for. But they're generally going to be held in a lecture setting, a seminar setting, laboratories. Some, of course, might be a general course, let's say Intro to Business or Business 101. You have some universities that might have 40 students in a class, 20 students in a class, 50 students in a class. So those kind of general courses at times may have more students. But if you go towards your, I would say, major specific classes, then you have less and less students. That I would say would be the norm for public universities. For private universities, class sizes are generally smaller. That is a great benefit of private universities. So at times, the general average for most private universities, you're looking at between, I would say, 16 to 21 students per class. As I talked about the different core structures of what equals a degree, essentially, to put it very simply, and this is the same for any four-year, college, university in the United States, half of the degree is generally what's called the general education requirement, and then the other half being more of the major specific requirement. So what does that generally entail? The general education structure, this is transferable across universities, and it really covers a diverse range of different fields. But you're generally focusing on components such as humanities, social sciences, natural sciences, mathematics. As I listed here some examples for you, like intro to psychology, that would fit a social science across generally all universities. Biology 101 or Biology 102. That's going to make or clear off a requirement for a student in their natural sciences. And of course, English composition, which is required also for American students such as us, ourselves as well. So my major, for example, in my undergrad was well, initially pre-law. As I mentioned, you can change your major. So I went from pre-law to international relations within still the political science hemisphere. And I had to take, of course, the general core classes. So I also took psychology. I took biology 101. I did not have to take advanced science classes such as organic chemistry, which I am sure I would not have done well, but my friends who went on to med school had to take that. That's one of the requirements. But I was also able to select different general education courses that I also was quite interested in. I also took various communication skills courses because public speaking was something that I was not comfortable with when I was younger, but you can see me now, and I've presented to, I would say the most was about 400 participants live in person. That just kind of fosters the different benefits of what really is a strong component of general education requirement, really helping individuals expand their different skill sets, grow, get to learn different components outside of what they may be doing within a career. It just, once again, helps individuals enhance their critical thinking, work on their communication skills, as well as expand different components. And then, of course, the other side, you have your major core requirement, which is very specific to your interest. If it's computer science, it's going to be in computer science or business or in international relations or in, if you're going to go into the sciences, everything specific to that. And it really just helps kind of balance. A question that I get a lot is, do I have to take all my general education requirements first and then my major specific courses? Absolutely not. A large number of students kind of balance. At times, you can choose easier general education requirements, your major core classes. The more advanced it is, generally in your junior year and senior year, takes a lot of your work. So sometimes students will take a very advanced class, but take a low-level general education requirement course to kind of balance the time that they have to put in across different courses, right? So that really kind of adds that additional flexibility. But for students who are yet not sure if this is the career that they want or that the major that they actually selected, some students, their parents will kind of force them to select a major. They arrive, they take classes, and they really are not happy with this, but they're happy with another field. So we see many students such as those. So then I usually tell students then take just your general education requirements because you need to have those same courses across different majors. And then if you decide to change your mind and then change your major, you're able to then shift from, let's say, business to biological sciences and not have that issue because both majors will still require the same general education requirements. For students who are maybe looking to maybe transfer or are transferring in, I also recommend students to then just take your general education requirements because whether it's at school A or school B requires the same. So those are generally transferable as well. So those are the things where you sometimes will see students will take general education requirements first, generally in their first year, get more comfortable, get to expand. They need to have these courses, and then start to take in years two, three, and four, a mixture of general education requirement and their major core requirements. So navigating college life and campus experiences. This is something that I also helped oversee across different universities, especially from a student services standpoint. That was my firmer, I would say, work capacity when I worked at the university. And it really is so beneficial for students. I wish we talk about this more when I'm, traveling in market. But of course, parents and students always ask about careers, about academics. But I always remind them that the college experience actually is so connected to internships and careers that we, of course, should be talking about this more and more. But every university has student clubs and organizations, and some of them are academic structured, and some of them are just, I would say, hobby related or social interactions where students can also meet friends, get to know about an interesting topic, and just foster those relationships. Why is that so critical for international students? It's because many students did not have that immersive experience back home, especially in the US, where I always like to say we're quite friendly, we're quite open, but being sociable, that is a huge part of also being able to get great networking exposures, have internships lined up, and then of course, when you're doing an interview for a job, being comfortable, being confident, because you are confident in English as well, really just enhances the likelihood of a student having that internship or job opportunity. So students are really able to, practice their English, make friends, and just have a better university experience. There are, of course, numerous academic support across universities, and that's generally the first thing that within even Shorelight as well, our signature universities, where we have campus personnel at most of those universities, not all, but most of those universities. We do a lot of that during orientation. For example, at Adelphi in New York, during orientation week, our first week, of course, we do registration, we do all the admin paperwork, but we also remind students of how to seek out support and where to seek out support. But I always tell students the first week you're getting so many information all across different departments. Everyone's telling you this is important, this is important, this is important, but you won't know until probably 2 or 3 weeks in what is going to be really important to you as an individual. And one of the things that we would have is regular check-ins with students, and then remind them where they can seek help for tutoring services or writing labs and different mentorship programs. And that really is the same kind of resource that universities across the United States provides, tutoring services, knowing that students may need that extra support. So there are, of course, different majors have different tutoring sessions available. There's always going to be a writing center on campus that helps students prepare. They will not write for students, but they will help prepare to start writing and getting those ideas flowing. That really aligns to critical thinking as well. And these academic support, and I always tell students, that's also where your tuition goes towards, right? That is part of your university experience. So please make sure to utilize that. And of course, that immersive experience, really getting engaged with the campus activities, really helps enhances a student's overall experience. And that really, I'm really happy to say, right now there's, of course, previously a lot of talk about what's happening within international students. We hear about Donald Trump, tweeting things, posting things, etc. But one of the things that I'm really happy with is across, I would say, nationally in the United States, universities banding together and reminding students that they are welcomed. International students themselves bring a huge influx to capital as well as monetary value for many, many businesses across where many universities are, whether it's big cities or small cities or urban locations or rural, more traditional university college towns. And many businesses actually have also gone off to really vocally proclaim how much they appreciate and support international students. So that really was a very heartwarming kind of note to also share out. So the other critical factor I would say that really students ask a lot about, especially for undergraduate students, would be about internships. This is a huge critical factor within a student's experience because it really is, and for most students, not all, but for most students, the first time they were able to know about the industry that they're looking to enter. It helps foster mentorship, provide that one-to-one guidance, because when you're doing an internship, you also will be receiving feedback from a supervisor who will then be able to help guide students for internships and then be able to help really just kind of expand on the skills that they may need to know. So finding internships are very critical. I always remind students, besides rankings or national rankings of a university, for me, the most important, I would say, factor of choosing a university would be how much will they help me prepare to find a job? What is their network exposure like? How many companies come to campus? All of those important things really help drive whether that university internship exposure will be beneficial for a student. And of course, that practical experience, the resume workshops, the different panel discussions. These are really, I would say, there are just so many at times different opportunities for students to experience. But we just always tell students there's a lot of noise. Always make sure, however, you're able to get to know about the key skill sets that your future employer may be looking for, and then building upon that within your first year, second year, third year onwards. There's different internship requirements across universities, but there generally are some consistent, I would say, foundational requirements. At most, you're looking at about a GPA of a 3.0 or higher, which of course makes sense. Uh, it shows that you're academically prepared and professionally prepared to, I would say, work in that environment. You're able to balance your workload as well. So that, of course, is a quite important requirement. Most faculty members or even a student's international student services department may not sign off if a student has a low GPA. Is a work authorization required? Yes. You of course need to get approval within your universities. At times, students, especially if it's an internship, not like volunteering work, but an actual internship, they may need to have that CPT or curricular practical training acknowledgement within their university as well. And some internships may require students to be recommended or referred to by their faculty or professor, which is also why I used to remind my students never, I would say, annoy your faculty member, do the work, participate, make sure they know how engaged you are because your faculty, your professors are really the gateway, the first people you know who are working or have worked in that industry and are able to then refer you. It's just you don't burn down bridges. That's what I always tell students. So you want to maximize your exposure. And of course, when students are coming to the US, they're applying for their within their F1 visa. And so students on the F1 visa, they apply, of course, within the curricular practical training, the CPT, like I mentioned before, and that, of course, is within the International Student Services Department at their university. So the different counseling services, and this is really broad strokes. It's the same for most universities, but the quality can be very different across universities. That's one of the key factors I would tell students to kind of think about. But generally, career counseling services deals a lot with a personalized approach, whether it's private or public, same thing. Really get to know more about what a student is looking for and how they can then tailor that to really just the industry they're looking to enter. One of the things I used to get a lot of questions about from my students, let's say within computer science, they'll say, "Oh, I want to pursue a degree in computer science." I would say, "Great. What industry would you like to work in?" Computer science. I say, fantastic. But what specific industry? Not knowing that much detail, then it really helps and help that student get to, more pushed towards knowing about the different variations. The student eventually wanted to do something in cybersecurity. So then I recommended him to take courses in cybersecurity, do an internship with a cybersecurity firm, and just know that it is transferable across different industries that you don't have to just apply for an IT industry, but there are, of course, other ones like businesses, different institutions all have a IT department that also manages cybersecurity. So expanding those horizons just enhances the different opportunities for job placements. Mock interviews are generally supported by universities as well. And I always encourage our international students because it really helps build that confidence sector the more and more they practice. And of course, regular workshops, job searches, career fairs, those are, of course, are across universities. And it just depends on the type of universities. For example, University of Illinois at Chicago, big university in downtown Chicago. They have 8 major career fairs every single year, and every year over 400 plus companies come to actively recruit their students. So there are, of course, different opportunities that really well-known universities are able to bring in. So I gave a brief glimpse into CPT and OPT and what that really means for an international student. But to put it very simply, curricular practical training happens when a student is currently enrolled when they are a full-time academic student. So generally, I always tell students in your first year, you work hard, you start to build different skill sets, and then students then in their second year or their third year will apply for an internship, and then most times they will do their CPT less than a year. You don't do more than a year, or else it impacts your OPT when you graduate. So generally less than a year. Optional practical training or OPT is what a lot of people refer to as a work visa. It is not a work visa. I always tell individuals an H-1B, that is a work visa, but an OPT, that is for international students. And all international students are able to work 12 months or 1 year when they graduate. But for students that have a degree that is STEM designated, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, that is able to be extended. So they will then reapply, have it extended, then up to 3 years total. So about 12 months or 1 year for non-STEM degree, and about 36, 3 years for a STEM designated student. That is the same for undergrad as well as graduate programs. So one of the things I also wanted to then kind of highlight here are different type of scholarships. These are some of the universities within our Shorelight portfolio. At Shorelight, we work with, I would say, about 120 plus universities every year. It increases. Every year, we sign more and more universities. For example, we also have signature universities, and then we have member universities. These are our signature universities. And what is the main, I would say, difference between signature universities compared to a member university that you might see on our shorelight.com portal? For undergraduate programs, for these universities, we're able to expedite the offer for a student. So the conditional offer letter is able to be quickly expedited. For member universities, it really falls towards the admission processing for that particular school, and every school will be different. But for these particular schools, these are our signature universities. We have universities that are 4 year scholarships. So Delphi, New York, that was also where I used to work. Cleveland State University, Dayton, UIC, many, many others. And of course, we have universities that have 1 year scholarship only for students. But for University of South Carolina and for Florida International University, they do help students apply for scholarships years 2, 3, and 4. So there is that additional support. So like I said, there's different universities, there's different types of universities. And one of the main component when I'm really talking to parents and students from an initial standpoint is really stems on, well, what does your son or daughter, what does your student, what kind of environment are they looking for? Is it an urban campus? Or is it a traditional campus? Do they want a big city or a small city? If someone says to me, well, they want a really large city, I would not recommend them to go to University of Wyoming because it will be in the middle of the United States. I might recommend them to go to either UMass Boston in Boston or Adelphi University. You have New York there. If you want close by to Salt Lake City, thriving STEM hub, University of Utah. So there's different universities I recommend. So getting to know more about the different majors that are available, getting to know then more about the different types of ambiance or atmosphere for a student, and then of course everyone's favorite topic, the price point, the scholarships. There are different price points, a tuition average, whether it's undergrad or graduate programs. But for our signature universities, we do, of course, have various scholarships available for international students. So always feel free to reach out to our colleagues at Yes Education, and they can then support you within the scholarship request. We work very closely with the universities mentioned here to really push to get as many scholarships for international students. Um, I'm going to stop my screen here, but I also wanted to then, Susan, if it's okay, just uh, showcase the shorelight.com website so that they would know how to utilize the platform. Would that be fine?
Yes, sure.
Oh, perfect. So, as I mentioned, one of the things that I really love, I always tell students and counselors, mainly counselors, my job essentially is to make your job easier. I know Maud is here on the line. Maud, I hope that's correct. But I always try to make everyone's life easier, as well as Shorelight. So, for example, let's take like a look, and if you go to undergraduate programs, you can see that we have about 103. We have some universities that have both undergrad and grad, and some that are only graduate only. For example, Johns Hopkins University. For us, we only work with their College of Engineering graduate programs. So within undergrad, you can see we work with over 100 schools. Maybe you might have a student with a, um, I would say 2.5 to 3.0 US GPA. So you can see the different criterias here. Maybe you have a student with an average TOEFL score, and you can see the different options here. When you look at these scorecards and you see these universities with the lantern, those mean that they are our signature universities, or we have a signature program available at that university, which means, of course, we're able to then expedite various offers from an undergraduate standpoint. So let's take a look at FIU. I mentioned this school because when love Miami, of course. Who doesn't like the beach? But it really is one of my favorite schools because it really highlights some key components that students are looking for. It's a top 100 ranked university. It's ranked 98, but they're ranked number two. I repeat, number two for international business. That is one of the highest ranked programs for international business, large public research university. But the global first year program, which is only for students coming through Shorelight, the class sizes are significantly smaller. So we really built in amazing academic support. You're learning from the same faculty members, but you're just having a better experience to really help prepare you your first year. And most of our students, they are actually having, we just received the report, they have higher GPAs than students that apply via Common App or even American students. So we're really proud about that as well. For those students who might be interested in hospitality, for example, FIU QS ranking, you're looking highly ranked, but within the US, they're also ranked number four across the United States for hospitality. They of course have top percent rankings for QS as well. So if you look at these kind of programs, you can see different important dates, you can see the different majors that may be available. And it kind of expands out, and you can see if it's STEM or not. And my favorite part is admissions. So for our universities that are signature university, we're able to really kind of narrow down the I would say the mystique that is admission processing, where we basically we're able to I would say transcribe the grading structure from Indonesia to the US in terms of what is required. So if you are coming in from Indonesia, for example, if you meet these certain GPA requirements, then you will be admissible for FIU from an academic standpoint. And then you can then see the language proficiency here on the different variations. So it really makes it easy for hopefully you to help utilize, navigate, and then of course also benefit from the different really streamlined approach that we have. And of course, as always, if you have questions about scholarships, then let Susan let us know. That's why we're always here. We want, as I mentioned, I'll repeat again, give as many scholarships for students. At a time of uncertainty, parents always ask, is this the right time for me to send my child to the US with everything going on? And they always tell parents and students the beauty of the US is that every 4 years we change presidencies. And of course, this is Donald Trump's second term. So by the time your son or daughter graduates, yeah, you're good to go. So that is a non-declaimer. It's a moot point because that will not impact your son or daughter. But of course, all jokes aside, there are different impacts that, of course, families may feel. But in the US, one thing that is constant is a need for international students. especially across these universities. Um, and the things that you see mentioned right now, so prevalent, these are things that students always had to abide by. If you break the law, then your student visa will be canceled. That's the same if I, for example, was studying in another country. If I broke certain regulations, I also would lose my student visa. You heard a lot about this previously because, of course, what's in the news. I'm happy to say that the courts, I would say, reactivated those visas. So students, of course, are fine. They're good to go. But you see a lot of that kind of noise. But I always tell students, focus on, what's right now the most important thing, getting a great education. And the US will always be number one in that the type of opportunities you get, even from a career standpoint. I mean, we have in one state, I was actually talking to a parent about this. New York State, for example, we have over 50 Fortune 500 companies, so many Fortune 1000 companies that it has more in one state than all of, I'm sorry to say, but like the UK, Australia, and Canada. I mean, it's just no comparison from a volume standpoint, the opportunities you get, the kind of exposures, the experiences, the really care to attention that universities provide students. So at the time of uncertainty, I always tell counselors one thing you can always be certain about is that for Shorelight, within our signature universities, we have great scholarships. You can always be certain on that. We love to issue and support you with those scholarships. And we always will be very transparent in terms of updates that do happen and across the various spectrums. Some, I would say, questions that people had asked about from a visa standpoint, from a student specific standpoint, are students at a higher risk of getting deported? Let's say international, if a student is coming through an accelerator, a pathway, for example, then a direct admission. And the answer is no, whether it's international direct or common app or pathway. Universities is the same thing. For the governments, they see them as the same. So there is no difference in that factor. Are visa rates increasing for international students? That's a question that I also receive quite often. No, it's pretty much the same. The US government essentially wants genuine students. If you're able to articulate the purpose of why you're looking to pursue that your studies at that university, which means you should know about the university, you should know about your major, you should know what you submitted on your DS 160. So that's why we always tell students, please submit it yourself so you actually know what you wrote. But genuine students are able to demonstrate clear academic goals, what they're looking to do, are able to provide documentation, and essentially they're more confident. So, and those students secure their visas. Uh, there are talks about travel bans. There is no broadband targeting international students currently. So, of course, that news has died down. Like I said, at times, news channels, I would say, focus a lot on something that has not happened, or they say that, oh, this is something that's important, but it's not actually true. So, once again, I always tell counselors and students and parents stick to the the source of truth, and essentially, universities and businesses in the U.S. Need international students. And Donald Trump, by first, is a businessman, so obviously he knows those main kind of requirements. Are international students facing visa cancellations or deportations now? There were some that, of course, experienced cancellation issues, but as I mentioned, those were then re-updated, and then there were some large number of cases. Those students have then been reinstated, so no issues in that regards. I had a few students similar; they had lost their status, and then within about less than a week, they regained their status. So yeah, it's the student was like, wait, what do I do? And then by the time they were deciding, yeah, they were back in status. So I was like, yeah, I told you, you have nothing to worry about. So that I would say would be the main component. Always know that the US It's a welcoming place for international students. I can promise you that. Many of my colleagues work at universities and they look to provide as much support to students on the ground. And that really is something that really goes both ways. We really want to be supportive to students, and of course, we always want genuine, hardworking students that come as well as benefit. And we also, as a university, as a country, benefit from the different diverse cultures. So that was it from my part. I'm just gonna pass it over to Susan.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Andrew, for the very clear and explanation about the current issues in the US right now. And I believe that that answers all of our curiosity and questions.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much.
Mm.
Thank you, Mod.
Yeah.
Mod, just a little fun fact. When I entered as Mod, so now there were two mods at one point. But thank you all once again to our amazing value partners in Indonesia and across the world. We will always appreciate the amazing support and yes, education. Thank you so much. I visited the office last time and it was a great office to go visit. So thank you all once again. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.